Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaryam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamcha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tata Kanta Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaidvacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So today we'll be reading from this most glorious Bhagavad Gita, from chapter 13, text number 22. The title of this chapter, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. So we spoke last week about how nature seems to be the cause of so many different things around us. But ultimately, the suffering and enjoyment that we experience is due to the living entity, to the jiva. The jiva makes decisions in day-to-day life, and the results of those decisions are various enjoyment and suffering. So when we have suffering, we can look no further than ourselves to see what something in my past has led to this suffering. And when there's some enjoyment, also something in my past has led to that. That's the action of laws of karma. So Krishna has explained that ultimately the living entity, the jiva, has to understand it is a source of its own happiness and distress. It's like you say, you sleep in the bed you made. That's what we have to. So it's not by some random acts of nature that various things are happening. We see randomness around us, but actually there is a perfect system that is orchestrating everything in nature around us and our interactions with it. So Krishna is saying this knowledge is what leads one to then find a better solution. Right? If I know that certain things are leading me to suffer, then someone with some intelligence will figure out, well, let me not do those things. And if I know certain things are going to give me more and more happiness, then someone with intelligence will do more of those things. Right? But without having this type of knowledge, we simply go through this transmigration from body to body to body. So now in these two verses, 22 and 23, Krishna is getting to the crux of the issue. There is a fundamental flaw in our understanding that is leading to so much suffering and difficulty. All the challenges we face, all the obstacles we face, it centers around this one confusion around who is the enjoyer. So one simple question, who wants to enjoy? Anybody wants to enjoy? Yeah, we all do, right? Maybe we can ask the opposite. Anybody doesn't want to enjoy? No. We all want to enjoy, and that is the nature of the spirit soul. The spirit soul is Ananda. Ananda means bliss. So one of the ingredients of the spirit soul is Ananda. So the nature to enjoy is present in all living entities. And it is not a incorrect nature. It is actually the right thing. That is our intrinsic quality. So the question is, how to be the enjoyer in a way that gives real happiness? That's the question. So Krishna will explain in 22 and 23, the jiva's position as enjoyer and the super soul, Krishna, his position as enjoyer. If we understand those two, then we'll become very situated in how to find perfection. Just like we knew, there are two knowers of the body, right? There's the soul and the super soul. There are two objects of knowledge. I must know about the soul and the super soul. And there are also two Purushas, enjoyers. We must know them both. Because actually, our false understanding that I am the independent enjoyer is what has led to all of our suffering. That is the conclusion of today's class. So let's read 22, and maybe we'll read parts of 23. Someone wants to read the verse?
Living entity and material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species.
Purport. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all the cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances. Yet, he is under the influence of material nature.
How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to the association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another, because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change this conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the science of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that As he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life.
So, what we see here is several important points. But, so there's a predominating consciousness that we must try to destroy. And what is that consciousness that we're trying to destroy?
Attachment to material nature.
Attachment to material nature. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
And this body.
This body. But there's a specific mentality.
To engage in devotional service, and so the things that you enjoy become both what you and Supreme Pratma can enjoy at the same time. And that kind of brings you into that Ananda bliss.
Yeah.
The consciousness is that he is the master of his circumstances.
Yes. This desire to be the
Lord of everything.
lording it over material nature, to be the master. As soon as that desire is manifest, we come to the material world. Because here we can try to pretend to be the master of our circumstances. But in our life, how many times what we wanted to happen did not happen? Once or twice? Every day? Something? Every day we have so many wants, but they're not fulfilled. We are being shown day in and day out, actually every moment, we are not the master. Because if we are the master, would you ever fail? Why would you cause yourself to fail if you were to control it? But we say to err is human. We think of that as a very simple statement. But right there lies. We are subordinate to something. We may not yet know what it is, but we're subordinate. Because I know one thing. My desires are not master. Are not to control it. Because I desire so many things. But it doesn't work. I want to go on a picnic tomorrow. But it's going to snow. Who's going to win in that equation? Me or nature?
Nature.
It's the fact. So we are constantly being thwarted with our idea that we are the master. Yet, what do we do? Keep trying. Keep trying. Over and over and over again. And what is the result of us trying to be the master of our circumstance?
Suffering.
Keep transmigrating.
Suffering. Keep transmigrating. Body to body to body to body. So Krishna said in the very beginning of the second chapter, Dihinoshmin yatha dehe kamaram yavanam jara tata dehan tada praptir dhirastata namuyati. Says the body is constantly going from childhood to youth to old age. And similarly at the end of this life it will go into another body. So he said the soul is always transmigrating. But why? That is explained here. That's why Prabhupada says this verse is very important for understanding how the living entity transmigrates from one body to another. Right? So what is the change of our body based on?
Our desires, past desires and associations.
Our past desires. Right? Prabhupada says due to attachment to material nature, we get so many different bodies. Prabhupada says as long as it's captivated by the false manifestation. Why is this considered a false manifestation?
Because it's temporary.
Because it's temporary. Not because it's fake, but because it's temporary. And this world is created in such a way that one can try to exhibit their false reality, which is I am master. Because I am master is not reality. But I can try to pretend to be the supreme controller. But I can only do that in the material world. But it's still false because it's not true. Right? How many of our plans in 2020 were turned totally upside down on their head?
Most of them.
Most of them. Anybody chose that to happen? Every single living entity, at least human, in this planet has been affected by this single virus. Yet, we all think, I am the master of my domain. Right? It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way. It goes on as much to say, is that we can't even ordain or determine which body I'm going to get next. Right? Can anyone say I absolutely will get this body or that body? No. It's forced upon us. Whether it's a dog, a beast, a worm, an aquatic, a man, demigod, saintly person, bug, all these examples Prabhupada gives. But is it forced upon us randomly? How is this body determined? We kind of said earlier, based on
material desires.
Based on material desires. Right? Whatever my desires are, they are fulfilled in different ways. And thus I acquire body after body after body. And so long as I have a material body, what is guaranteed to come with it?
Miseries.
In the form of limitations.
Sufferings.
But what do those sufferings or limitations, they manifest themselves in? Four things.
Birth.
Old age.
Diseases.
Birth.
Old age. Anybody wants old age? But can anybody stop it? Disease. Anybody wants disease? We certainly know we can't stop it. Yes, we'll celebrate the presence of vaccines. But are we celebrating the end of the disease era? We are simply stopping this variety, possibly. But another one's coming. But nobody wants disease. But is anybody free of disease? Death. Anybody is free of death?
No.
There's only two sure things in life.
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes. And birth. It's a very difficult circumstance. So as soon as we take a body, these things are going to be forced upon us. Which means there'll be suffering, difficulty. We may try to make the best out of a bad bargain. But it's there. And beyond that, there's three more difficulties. Adhyatmic, adhibhautik, adhidaivic. Difficulties of the body and mind. The body gives so many difficulties. A pain here, a pain there. And even more difficult, the mind. It takes us to so many places and creates so many disturbances in our quest for happiness. But if our body and mind is fit, don't worry. Nature will create disturbances. There's so many disturbances in nature. Tornadoes and storms and this and that. That is another source of difficulty. And beyond that, the conflicts between living entities. There's so much, disturbances. Even on a nice, sunny afternoon in the summer, mosquitoes will come and try to disturb your enjoyment. Sometimes the disturbances are very small. So the point is that when you take these bodies, it is going to lead to these difficulties. So how to get rid of this constant cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease? What does one have to do? Singularly.
Engage in devotional service.
Engage in devotional service. And by engaging in devotional service, what will we lose?
Material attachment.
Our material attachments. Our desire to try to be master. Now, one will say, well, okay, I can't be master. Yes, I've tried, but there are certain things I can control, so isn't that better than nothing? Isn't that better than having no control. At least some things I'm doing, I'm getting some happy. What is the result of completely ridding oneself of their desire to be master and to engage in devotional service? What is that result?
Back to order.
And the result of that?
Liberation.
And the result of that?
Return to Godhead.
And the result of that?
Be eternally happy.
Read the last segment of Krishna Prabhupada's purport. He proportionally relishes his eternal blissful life. We asked in the beginning, who wants to be enjoyer? Didn't everybody raise their hands? So we all want to be enjoyer. And that is actually the right search. That's what we should be looking for, to be the enjoyer. But we should know our position as enjoyer. So to achieve a blissful eternal life, eternally blissful life, I should say, one has to understand we are not the independent enjoyer. There is somebody else that we are enjoying with. If I try to be the independent enjoyer, the lord of my own domain, trying to master this material nature, I can try it. But I will be faced with this transmigration from body to body to body to body. And each body is going to bring with it birth and death, old age, disease, difficulties of the body and mind, difficulties of nature around us, conflict with others. These sevenfold miseries are forced upon us. No choice. But by simply relishing, or I can say simply relinquishing this desire to be master, one then actually enjoys. Why is it that we want to be master? Because we think it's going to give us happiness. But actually, when one surrenders his desire to be the independent enjoyer, engages in devotional service, then one actually achieves an eternal blissful life. Not a temporary blissful life, but an eternal blissful life. And so this is the key to happiness, relinquishing this desire. Enjoyer. I am not the independent enjoyer. And that must be. Because in the next verse, Krishna says, yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord. Purusha Pada. This is the transcendental enjoyer. So yes, there are two enjoyers. But we must understand what is our position. Just like the example we always use, if you go to somebody's, you have a friend who's very rich, and they have a really, really nice house. And in that house they have, lots of things to enjoy. A big boat on a lake, hot tubs, pools, ping pong tables, big screen TV, all these things you want to enjoy. So-called enjoy. You knock on the door and say hello to your friend. Now you are enjoying in his home. If he's a friend, he'll say, make yourself at home. Right? That's what he said. And so you can enjoy his facilities. But are you the independent enjoyer? Are you the controller of your experience in his home?
No.
Why not?
Because he can tell us to vacate his premises anytime.
As soon as he says it's time for you to go home, what do we have to do? Go home. Because it's not ours. We are not the proprietor. So we can enjoy, but we have to enjoy with our friend. Right? Now, if you're enjoying it at home and you totally ignore your friend, is that a very good thing to do? No, you should be aware. Whose facilities am I enjoying? And a respectful thing to do is not to try to enjoy those things independently. Hey, you go away, I'm going to enjoy your new TV. Give me the remote. That's not the right. And that relationship is clear as day because of one fact. What makes that fact so clear to us? That we must work in cooperation with our friend in this example. Why must we work with our friend in this example? What fact makes it undebatable? We can't enjoy without him.
It's his home.
It's his home. It's his home. He is the proprietor, which gives him the right to be the determinant of who can enjoy him. Right? So in this next verse, Krishna says, yet in this body there's another transcendental enjoyer. And why is Krishna the transcendental enjoyer? Because he is the supreme proprietor. Who has created all these facilities within the material world?
Krishna.
Who owns them? If I try to enjoy them separate from Krishna as the proprietor, it's no different than me going into that friend's home and trying to enjoy his belongings separate from him. We all said that's obviously not the right thing to do. That's obviously disrespectful. That's obviously my mother taught me better. I have more manners than that. Yet we are enjoying in this material world the same way. With the same lack of courtesy to at least acknowledge, hey, I came into this world with nothing. I'm going to leave this world with nothing. So everything between point A and point B, I'm using someone else's resources. And who's that ultimate someone else? Who's a proprietor?
Krishna.
So actually one can enjoy in this material world. How?
Enjoying it with him.
Enjoying it with Krishna. Using whatever facilities one has in the material world. Using it in the service of Krishna. Krishna doesn't say, hey, everything here is... No. Use it. But use it in the service of Krishna. Just as much as you would not use one's facilities for one's own enjoyment. But use it actually for Krishna. Then one actually finds enjoyment. And we know, in that same example of the friend's house, what is the goal of the friend in having you over?
To enjoy your company.
And your friend wants you to
Do the same.
enjoy, to be happy, right? Invites you over, makes you comfortable, offers you something to drink, says, whatever mine is yours. The goal of that friend is to make you happy. What is the goal of Krishna? Krishna wants to provide everything. Just you enjoy. But we must know what our position is as enjoyer. We are the dependent enjoyer. So when we learn to enjoy with Krishna, then we find real happiness. But if we try to enjoy independent of Krishna on our own, we'll be slapped over and over and over, just like we are every day, trying to be the master. But it's not working. So this false pretense of I'm the independent enjoyer is what leads one to transmigrate body to body to body to body. And how will it end? When we associate with Krishna and his pure devotees. and hear, like Arjuna is hearing,
From authoritative sources.
about this knowledge. This is the key to unlocking eternal happiness. And if we do, then we'll find eternal bliss. Otherwise, transmigrate body to body to body to body. So next week we'll discuss this 23rd verse in more detail. How Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and how as the overseer and permitter, he interacts with us as a living entity. But we'll keep going back to this point. Whoever is the proprietor is the independent enjoyer. Everybody else is the dependent enjoyer. Us in the house of our friend, we are the dependent, meaning we're dependent on the mercy of that friend. Our enjoyment in this material world also is dependent on the mercy of Krishna. So, if we try to be separate from Krishna based on the laws of karma, if we try to enjoy with Krishna, devotional service, everything becomes very simple. This is 22nd and part of 23rd verse. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai. Anantagoti Vaishnavinda ki. Any questions or discussion?
Just one. False ego, is that a cause or an effect?
False ego is the result of our being having a desire to be independent of Krishna. So when we have that desire, then we acquire the false ego. And then the false ego has an effect, which is our bodily consciousness. But the cause of us acquiring the false ego is our desire to be master. So it's a sequence.
Yeah, waterfall effect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any question?
No, thank you.
So we're all ready. Yes.
Sorry.
There's one question that came up.
People say due to our past karma, we get into material desires and suffer. But from this verse, it's clear that due to our independence, will we can situate ourselves in KC, right?
What are you saying again?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, people say due to our past karma, we get into material desires and suffer, but from this verse, it's clear that due to our independent, will we or can we situate ourselves in Krishna consciousness?
Yes. So, remember, we are the cause of our suffering and enjoyment. So because of our past desires, we have become situated in the material world, suffering the laws of karma. Action equals reaction, right? Good karma, bad karma. But if we desire to transcend these modes, to become free from the material nature, then one can achieve a higher platform. So it is up to us. This situation is not forced upon us in the sense that it is not changeable. What does that mean? We cannot say, oh, I'm destined to be a sinner, so I have no hope to take to bhakti. No. Nobody is destined to be a sinner. One may have a tendency, a nature to be a sinner based on one's past association with the modes. We'll talk about that in the next chapter. So as we associate with different modes, we may have certain natures that we've acquired, but that nature is changeable by good association. So by good association, by devotional service, association leads us to devotional service, one can transcend the modes. From wherever we are, one can elevate and go to the highest. So our position is not fixed. It is in our hands. But if we don't have knowledge how to change our situation, we'll just keep doing the same things over and over again. So yes, the opportunity to transcend the mode, the opportunity to create a better situation for ourselves, it is within our hands. We must acquire the knowledge, and then we must act upon that knowledge. And if we do, the result will be there. And if we don't, another result, transmigration, body to body, body to body. Yes.
Another question. We know Krishna wants us back as quickly as possible, but then why does he create the Maya so powerful that it becomes extremely hard for us to go back?
Who's asking?
Bhagavad.
Okay. So it's a great question. Why is Maya so difficult? If Krishna wants us to come back, why does he create Maya so difficult that it's hard to see that I am not the independent enjoyer? Why is it so hard to see? Well, actually, he doesn't make it hard to see. Material nature is slapping us every day telling us we are not the controller. But we don't want to see it. But the reason Maya is so strong, because we have this desire to be the independent enjoyer. Well, it's not reality. We can never be. But to pretend to try to be the independent enjoyer, Krishna creates a very powerful illusion. Just like when I walk into that friend's house, there's no way I can claim myself to be the proprietor. It's just not factually there. Well, similarly, in this material world, factually, I am not the proprietor. I can never claim to be. But because I have this desire to try to be independent of Krishna, Krishna enacts a very powerful illusory energy. But remember, Krishna says this powerful, all-encompassing, ever-attacking, most potent Maya Devi, who's trying to snatch us at every step, so powerful. Krishna says, at once can be overcome. Daivi hesha guna mai mama maya drataya. He says at once. How? Ma mega ye prapadyante. One who surrenders to me. Maya mekam tadantite. At once can cross over this ocean. So yes, Maya is very powerful. But who's even more powerful than Maya? Krishna. So, if we have a strong enough desire to overcome Maya, it will happen. But if our desire is very whimsical, it'd be nice, maybe, then we have no hope. So while Maya is very powerful, devotional service is much, much more powerful. And so that's why Krishna says, at once, one can overcome this divine energy of his. So we should not be discouraged by the strength of Maya. We should be encouraged by the potency of bhakti. But that desire in our heart must be the predominant force, not anything else. If we are weak in our desire, like anything, we won't be successful. So we have to be very staunch to overcome, and it'll happen. Anything else in it? Then we'll chant and acknowledge our beautiful position under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.